love self-help books. I feel like a self-help book junkie for sure. For the past 15 years, I have been kind of addicted. But that being said, I have to say there's a huge problem with self-help books. Hey, Clutterbugs, and welcome back to the Clutterbug podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about self-help books because, I mean, you listen to podcasts, you watch podcasts, you're definitely someone who wants to better themselves. Like that's what this is all about. It's about learning and having that motivation from other people, getting wisdom from other people so that you can either get stuff done, find that motivation, or learn something new. And that for me is definitely the number one reason why I am so drawn to self-help books. I know for a fact, I know that they have improved my life substantially, but there's definitely a misconception. They're not perfect. And the problem with self-help books is the assumption that reading a book or even listening to a book or somehow like hearing wisdom is going to completely overnight fix your life. It's a huge problem because especially for like people just getting into these things, you spend, I don't know, $30, books are expensive, on a book, you feel really motivated reading it, and a week later you feel like you're right back where you were before you started reading the book, and that can feel very defeating. And I think some of these books come with this promise of this life-changing thing, like somehow, reading the book is going to transplant our brain and we're suddenly going to become a person who gets up at 5 a.m. I actually read that book. I did not ever even once get up at 5 a.m. Did I want to? Sure. I felt motivated to do it. Never actually did it. But I'm still glad I read the book. And that's what I'm hoping when you're listening to this podcast today. First of all, I hope you're going to tackle something in your home. I hope while listening to this, you're going to get up, not just passively listen, and we're going to take action on something you've been putting off today, something you've been procrastinating today, whether you're doing the dishes, do that laundry, grab a trash bag and do some trash bag therapy, find some things to go. How can you take action? How can you make a difference in your home while listening to me rant about self-help books? Just let me rant. And I want to talk about this because I want you, if you've ever read a book and like had a bad experience, to kind of get back into it and have an open mind. And so I'm hoping to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, starting with the good. The thing that I find the most powerful about reading self-help books is the instant motivation that I feel. I feel like I'm borrowing the motivation from the author. They're written from a place of trying to fire people up. The author's whole goal is to get the reader excited about their own life, excited about the possibilities of their life. And it's very culty, and you can't help but feel that burst of energy, that burst of motivation come off the paper. Or I like to listen to audiobooks and I feel it, man. And it's fleeting. It goes away. It doesn't last. But sometimes it's that jolt that I need in the moment to get up and do something small. And that is to me so priceless, that little jolt. But it isn't long lasting. But there's something else that comes from these books. I'm going to talk about a lot of the books I love and why I love them in just a second. But there's something else that I do feel is long lasting that comes from these books. And that is a sliver of knowledge that I didn't have before. None of these things is going to like change your life overnight. None of the information from these books is that thing that's like the one thing you've been missing, that now all the pieces can fall into place. But you are going to learn something that you didn't know before. It's like a grain of sand filling into your cup. I'm bad at metaphors here. But every time I consume every time I learn something new, every time I read something new, I'm like, I'm leveling up a little bit. All these slivers, all of these grains of sand are adding up to a life, to me, a better, just more knowledgeable, more confident, just better me. And so I'm I'm not naive going in thinking that one is the answer. I know that it's hundreds that are the answer. And I'm never going to be perfect, but I can promise you this, I'm way better than before. And the third reason why I'm pretty much obsessed with self-help books is I've seen firsthand how it shifts a mindset. And that mindset shift can be long lasting. So the more I consume the same sort of thoughts over and over, the more my thought patterns change myself. So a really good example is the first self-help books I was ever introduced to were financial books. I had 0 financial knowledge. I didn't know what compound interest was. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to save. I was like, "You get money, you buy stuff, right?" Like, that's the thing. You work for money so that you can buy food and have a place to live and get some fun stuff. I started reading, like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Wealthy Barber and then Dave Ramsey, and I started learning that money is really a tool to make you more money. Like, money can earn you money. This was You're probably listening to this and like, "Yeah, okay, obviously, Cass." But this is something I didn't know, and this was like a mindset shift that made me start thinking about building wealth instead of looking at my money as what it could buy me. And I'm not great with money, and I waste things still, but the big picture, my overall mindset about money, I really I see things differently. I save differently. I spend differently than I did before I consumed all of those books. And it wasn't one book that changed my mindset. It was repeatedly hearing the same message coming from a bunch of different ways for an extended period of time that literally retrained my brain and made me think differently, that made me think better. And the exact same thing happened when it came to organization. When I first started getting organized, I got that spark from Peter Walsh, and then I read his book, It's All Too Much, and then I read Julie Morgenstein's book like a million times, and I just started consuming as much knowledge about home organization and home management as possible, and even today, the things that I'm saying with clients, the things I'm saying to you that fall out of my face, these are not original thoughts. This is the knowledge that's been put in my brain from like a bazillion experts that I've consumed that have taught me how to declutter, have taught me how to organize through just like repetitive information, the same message said lots of different ways over time. And yeah, it so this is why I think this self-help is important. I don't think it's the individual books that are like life-changing. I think it's the self-betterment. It's the drive to level up, the drive to learn, the drive to know something, do something, be something that I wasn't yesterday. And it can sometimes I just wanna watch some Netflix or just be a bum and not do those things. Um, and that's fine. This isn't something we have to do every day, day in and day out, but know that a little bit goes a long way when you're consistent with it. If you're listening to 15 minutes a day of an audiobook on your drive to work or while you're doing the dishes, that's gonna add up to an improved you. But it isn't gonna change you overnight. And so let's talk about some